Today I'd like to talk about role models and great leaders. And who am I talking about when I say role models and great leaders? I'm not talking about the public figures who people might immediately think of. I'm talking about the people who really make changes in this world. Those are the people we know. So our parents, our teachers, our friends, those are the role models and leaders who can make a difference in this world. My parents, I was asked when I first did my masters, which was in leadership and management, and we were asked to put down on post-its the names of the great leaders who have inspired us over the years. And I immediately wrote down my parents' names. And they gave me my moral compass. They taught me not only right and wrong, but how to see the world, but also to stand up for what you believe in, to not do something if you think it's wrong just because somebody else is doing it, and also to never ask from anyone else what you would not do yourself. So, that has influenced every aspect of my life, and certainly influenced me in my work life and my whole understanding of leadership. Now, one of the ways you can see, there's a little example of how they saw beyond, for example, skin colour and race, which are key issues at the moment. Many people didn't see beyond that when I was growing up. There were plenty of people for whom, skin colour was a very significant thing to notice in someone, and it would affect how you thought of them. Not so my parents, and you can see that was passed down to me by a sort of anecdote. As far as they were concerned, skin colour would be an identifier just like hair, eyes, what you used to wear, if it was a man, if they had a beard, no more, no less than that. And one day I had a friend over after school. I was in primary school. I think I was in sort of middle juniors, or I don't know, sort of something like year 4 or something, I think it would be now. And I had a friend over, and my mum was going to bring us both back from school. And it was the first time this particular friend had come back. And my mum said to me, "How will I know who she is if she comes out of the gates without you?" And I said, "Oh, that's easy, because she always has her hair in these gorgeous little plaits, and they're absolutely adorable. I love her plaits, and you'll recognise her by her plaits." And so my mum recognised her. She brought us both home. We had a lovely evening, and my mum took her home again. And she said afterwards, "Why didn't you tell me she was black?" And I was like, I didn't notice, didn't think about it. She was, as it happens, the only black girl in that school. It just hadn't occurred to me because I, as a little girl, had been totally fascinated by her hair. And, my mum had only thought of saying that she was black because it would have been the obvious identifier, being the only one in the school. But it didn't matter. And it shouldn't matter. And it shouldn't make a difference. Because of my upbringing, I fought for those rights when I was a teenager, and I've been making the same statements ever since. As a teenager, the slogans, "One race, the human race," black and white, united fight. I've got art books filled with pictures of a black and white hand holding each other that I used to draw, or faces where they merged, so you have the black and the white. I was never one to agree with the whole melting pot idea. I didn't think you should take away someone's culture and their identity, because that's part of who they are, any more than I would have wanted somebody to take away, I'm a religious person, I wouldn't want somebody to take away my religion. That's a part of who I am, that's part of my culture. But they should be able to work alongside each other and bring out the best in each other. I've never understood anything else. I went on, I used to buy Beauty Without Cruelty makeup. It was in the days when all makeup was tested on animals, and I was against that, and I used to buy Beauty Without Cruelty, and it was not the best of makeup. So my friends would have all this lovely makeup, and I would be like, yeah, they've got this colour today, that's what I've got, Gay rights. I used to write to political prisoners and things like that. So that comes from the role model and leadership skills of my parents. They're the ones who influence me. Nobody is born filled with hatred and racism and anger. That's not how we're born. Those aspects of people are taught to them. I spoke last week about needing to unlearn stuff. And there are things that people need to unlearn in order to relearn and learn them for the good of the whole of society. I was really saddened when there were all the marches for the environment and children were skipping school, and what saddened me was the reaction of, these children should be in school. Couldn't people realise that these children were learning? These children were empowering themselves and having a voice. They were looking to change society for the better. If that's not learning, what is? What made my heart sore was when there were schools where a teacher had taken the children on the march and gone with them, rather than saying, you shouldn't be going, you should be in school. They were embracing it and they were using it as an educational opportunity. Surely, in my opinion, that is what my job as a teacher is. That's what my job as a parent has always been. I can remember one of the marches I went on as a teenager, and there was a teacher from our school who was there, and at the time it never occurred to me that the reason he happened to be walking by me and fellow classmates would have been that he was keeping an eye on us. Those marches could get pretty rough. You had the National Front on one side of the road and the Anti-Nazi League on the other side of the road, and we as the Anti-Nazi League were walking down and making all of our chants, saying all of our chants. The police were down the middle, National Front the other side, and I had a teacher who was actually going on these marches, and he would find any of his students and just march with them and keep them safe. That is a role model. That is teaching, and it's teaching beyond the national curriculum. There's nothing wrong with having a national curriculum, but we can teach so much more if we look beyond it and we think about our moral responsibility, and it is a great responsibility. If we are going to be helping children to see the world as a place where they have a voice, we have to lead by example. We can't say one thing and do another. We have to set that example ourselves. I got a lot of pleasure out of a Christmas gift from one of my pupils once. Well, several times this has happened, where they'd bought me fair trade chocolate and fair trade coffee as presents. They know that I wear fair trade clothes wherever possible. The top I'm wearing today, I didn't choose this one because I was making the video. This is what I happen to wear today. This comes from Siesta, a fair trade shop where everything they source is, everything they sell rather, is ethically sourced. That's what I choose to wear, and that's because of the values with which I was brought up. Those values were espoused by certain teachers as well as my parents, and those are the ones I followed. So we as teachers have tremendous influence, and we have a duty and an obligation and a responsibility to use that influence to make the world a better place. Because if not, what are we doing in schools? What are we teaching our children? There is no one in this world who is worth more than one other man or woman. Every person in this world, male, female, black, white, whatever ethnicity, whatever religion, no one is worth more than one other. We need to live together. The whole, it comes from Leviticus 19, and Jesus is known to have said it, and in my tradition Hillel is known to have quoted it. Hillel was asked to sum up the Torah, the Bible, on standing on one leg, and he just said, love your neighbour as yourself. The rest is commentary, go study. Now, one of the important things in that message is that we have to love ourselves, because if we don't, and we love our neighbour as ourselves, that's scary. And that's where you get the extremism and the violence and the aggression, because people who behave like that can't like themselves, because they're full of hatred. If you love your neighbour as yourself, you have to love yourself. You have to, I don't mean sort of go around going, yeah, I'm wonderful. I mean have a real sense of moral purpose that is for the greater good of society, genuinely, not to privilege one part of society over another. It's to actually look after everyone. And we have a duty, and I felt obliged to say that this week, because in my tradition we talk about the sin of silence, people who stay silent as though they have nothing to say. That is how injustice happens in this world. The only way we can make sure that this world is a better place for every single person in it is if we actually speak out when we see injustice, and we actually model the example of caring for every single human being, because every life matters. Every single one. Thank you.